1 Timothy, 1 Timothy 6, starting at verse 6. And it says, "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So, if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, craving money, have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows." As we prepare today, the sermon topic for today will be "For the Love of." Say that with me, "For the love of." You may take your seats. For the love of. Now, some of you, when you think about "for the love of," it might strike you. Wow. Money, 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 money. Look at y'all. Y'all are acting up. Money, 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 money. Wow. Like, okay, hold on. Stop. Cut it out. Okay. Okay. I just want to talk about how I'm always amazed that we'll be in worship and the band will drop into a song and y'all will sit there. They'll be singing their hearts out, standing up here sweating. Jazz done sung up a storm. Jesus is coming back. And we be like, he hit 3 licks over there. Y'all be like, oh! The same people that'll be like, oh, you don't take all that for worship. You ain't got to be all loud and move. Soon, you, oh! I just want to point that out. Anyway, all right. But the OJs have this song, in many ways taken from the very words of this scripture, entitled "For the Love of Money." And in this song, they talk about a variety of different things. And if we're honest, right, there are a variety of songs that do this. But some of these verses, these words just jump out to me. For the love of money, people will steal from their mother. For the love of money, people will rob their own brother. For the love of money, people can't even walk the street because they never know who in the world they're going to meet. For that lean, mean, green, almighty dollar, right? Now, although this song has a bit of history and is not the newest song, there's still truthfulness to this, right? Although the way in which we potentially carry our resources are different, we're not worried about folks taking cash from us. Few of us walk with cash, but there's still all of these consistent concerns about resources. It shows up again and again, whether it is way back in the 70s or we move into the 90s, 2000s. That's, when I was growing up, it was either Camp Lo and Lucchini Falling from the Sky, right? We would talk about that. Or it'll be Wu-Tang Clan and cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills, y'all. Oh, okay. Right, every generation has the songs, right? And there are new ones, right? They keep coming out. One of the most consistent things that we often have in these discussions around money is how we view money. And I want to begin by saying I think that we, not you, not them, we have developed unhealthy perspectives regarding money. I think we've connected unhealthy perspectives for what it means to be wealthy or rich or valuable. And I think it's some of the same things that Paul, who is writing this particular text, is trying to help as he communicates with Timothy. Timothy, the younger, newer person in the faith who God has been amazingly blessed, Paul is writing to encourage him how to continue to lead the church, but also how to continue to live a life that can be an example of Christ. And Paul, in all of his journeys and all of his experience, has seen certain things show up again and again. And although this is an ancient time, so some of their connections are very different from ours, some of the principles are still amazingly the same. In fact, the very word in the text in Timothy that they use to talk about the love of money, it is a conjunction word. Conjunction with this idea of filio, this brotherly love, this idea of connection, and then the other word, which I will mispronounce terribly, so I won't try, but it stands for silver. These two words come together, this love of silver, because at the time, as they were still in a bartering society, they were developing currency. And as currency had come, their currency was silver. And as people started doing this, all of these kind of connections started coming with the accumulation of silver. And it wasn't just that you love it, but there's an unhealthiness to it. In fact, some translations, and it would be right to do so, say it's not just the love of money, but it's greed. It is avarice. It is the way by which we elevate this thing to a status it should not be. And I'll stand transparently so that you don't feel that I'm just talking about you, but I know that I constantly struggle with how I should rightly appropriate the resources in my own life. The first thing that I think, and I think this is a huge issue, and I think it's prevalent in our culture, is that when we have conversations around money, or even the way we think about money, we've elevated money to a deity. We worship money. I know you don't want to believe me. I know you don't. I know you don't want me to say it. I know you don't want me to point it out, because it is not, surely we're not the type of people that will worship something other than God. Surely we believe in God. We got our Bibles. We got our devotions. Some of us even got our prayer chains, and we do our thing. We got folks that we call and we send them Bible verses all the time. We are not the ones. But can I tell you, I'm not just pointing the finger to out there surrounding culture. I think it is prevalent even in the house. You can tell by the things we watch. Have you noticed that we often celebrate people based upon their ability to communicate their wealth? We wouldn't watch Real Housewives of wherever, because they everywhere now. This is a whole bunch of, I ain't never met this many housewives ever in my life. But anyway. But we celebrate them, we watch them, we all fixated. We wouldn't do that if they was all poor. Who wants to watch a whole bunch of poor people arguing? You can just go home for that. Like I got that right here. I mean, I'm not trying to talk about your house. I'm just saying other people's houses would look like that, right? But it's because they got all this money. They pull up in all this fancy cars. And in fact, that's the reason why we get the fancy car. We get the fancy car because it says we got money. I get in trouble. Okay. I don't think there's any reason that anybody drives a Tesla Cybertruck except for to say, I got enough money to buy a Tesla Cybertruck. It has to arguably be one of the ugliest vehicles ever created. Like, You know, this looks like the vehicle that your son or your daughter drew at school and came back and you hung it on the refrigerator. They was like, look, I drew you something. And you was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? Okay, anyway. But we do it because it shows status. And this is problematic because we literally deify money and people with money. This is the reason why you can lead a country just because you're rich. Or the reason why we make it, you have to be able to make money to even run for the presidency. Isn't that problematic? Something, why? Because watch, we've connected it. We believe that money is the main thing that runs everything. It's how we position our lives. It is how we connect with individuals. It is how we start assigning value. We have deified money. And we do it in church. If you were to be honest and you surveyed your personal prayers, how many of your prayers are resource related? God, if I'll just have more money. God, you know, I'm so glad that you got me where I am right now. But God, if you would just give me a little bit more, you know what I'm saying, I'll be able to do. And then we even say stuff, and we know we lying. Like, we lie to God straight through our teeth. God, because you need, I'll do better for you, God. I'll even give you more once you give me. You ain't give me nothing now. You give me nothing now, I'm going to give you more. And all of a sudden, oh, you know what? Let me start going. Anyway, sorry. That was an aside. We've deified it. In fact, our lives are driven around it. We work. Many of you, if money was not an issue, you know for sure the people at your job would never see you again. They would never see your face. You are only there because there's a paycheck connected. And if you could figure out ways to not be there and still get the paycheck, you would develop those right now. Right? Or the type of jobs that we might be willing to do. Well, you know, you pay me the right thing. I might be willing to push past a few of those moral objections that I had because I'll be able to pay myself. And then we rationalize it. I'll better be able to take care of my family. I'm creating generational wealth. No, you're not. Stop it. Okay, I'll say this. I'll get in trouble and I'll move forward. Half of y'all don't trust y'all kids with the little dollars you got now. Are you really trying to give them hundreds of thousands later for them? Okay, just throw that out there. Generational wealth. Okay, I love the concept, but let's be honest. But anyway, we've deified it. And this is the same thing that Jesus talks about in his famed Sermon on the Mount, this longest segment in Scripture that we have of Jesus teaching. He talks about so much, and Jesus lifts up. You can go and see this in Matthew chapter 6. Jesus lifts up. He says, you can't have two masters. You can't serve both God and then in the way that it says money, but the word is mammon. Mammon is the way in which they deified. They idolize the idea and concept of resources, not just money, but property, attainment, and goals. This thing, if it runs your life, it will kill you. This is why you make more now than you did before and you still don't feel like you have enough. This is the reason why it doesn't matter how much you save, you always need to save more. It doesn't matter how much crypto is working or how much investments you have. It doesn't matter what your portfolio looks like. It's never enough. Because it was never meant to be the thing that we depend on. We act as if money will insulate us from everything. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you look out there, you look into the world, and it seems like, man, the wealthy, they have enough money to insulate themselves from so many things. Sometimes it looks that way. Sometimes it may even be that way, but it's not always true, because those same people can lose gargantuan amounts of money in a day, and those same protections that they thought they had, they are gone. Those same friends are no longer there. Those same abilities are no longer there. All of a sudden now those people that used to be sitting way up here, they ain't up there no more. We have to be cautious, because God doesn't want us serving money. You can have it. This doesn't mean being rich is bad, but it also don't mean being rich is good. We'll get into it, but it's not so much what you have, it's how you use what you have. Number one, the problem is we deify money. We've elevated money to idol status. We do it over and over again, and all of us have ways that we need to remove that from our system only by the help of God. And I wish I had some other folks in here that could testify. I've been in places I could not afford to be. Not because I had the money, but because I had a God that opened doors to get me there. And if we would really depend on the God instead of the money, you could walk around and live the life that you want without always worrying about the resources. I wish I had a few more folks that could testify that I got a God with the cattle on 1,000 hills. I got a God that can make things happen. I got a God that can open up doors. I got a God that can make me what I need to be. He says, be cautious now, because this love of money, this greed, this idea of overly connecting to it so that it becomes so important it rules your life is a problem. It's a problem if you won't show up someplace unless you're going to make money. And listen, I understand the hustle culture. Like, I grew up in every day I'm hustling. I get it. It sounds so good. Man, get me going. Come on, Cat Wheels, turn it on again, right? We got it. No. Because then we wonder why we always feel burned out and empty. Or the reason why we want to go online and lie to people and act like we're on vacations and doing stuff that we know we really ain't doing, because we really want to exude something that's not true, but now we're empty on the inside. Because it was never the search and the move for all of this stuff. Paul writes, he says, man, this love of money, man, it'll kill you. It'll open you up to all types of negative things. Number two issue that I'm noticing with this notion and this issue with this love of money becomes the way that now money becomes self-identification. Everybody say self-identification. We now use money to evaluate who we are. I'm not even worried about the way that we use this money to talk about other people. First, let's talk about the way we use money to define who we are. And I'll just talk about me, because I don't want to step on y'all toes without stepping on mine. I'll never forget, out of nowhere, as a kid, I made up in my mind I was going to be a millionaire by 30. I made it up because I'm smart, and I was going to use my intelligence to make me all this money, right? That's what I told myself. Cool. Then I get a call to ministry. And I know so many of you out there, you all believe that pastors are rich. Can I testify? We are rich in good mercies, and we are rich in compassion. We are rich in the goodness of the Lord, but I'm not rich in my bank account right now. You understand me? However, the challenge has become that at 30, I made up this number. And I was supposed to be there. So when I turned 30, I felt like a failure because I did not attain a goal that actually had zero meaning. But I also started thinking about myself differently. I must not be intelligent enough, or smart enough, or able enough, or good enough. Now, all of a sudden, now I'm struggling because I'm constantly trying to prove to myself that I am better than what I had started telling myself that I was. I was a failure because I missed this completely irrelevant marker that I made up for my life. Because I was supposed to be a millionaire. Based upon what? To do what? Just so I could be it? Because I'll be very honest. This is your pastor being honest. I had no plan of what to do with the millions. I just wanted to be able to say I was a millionaire. And then, let's be honest, our culture doesn't allow us to talk about resources like that anyway. So who was I going to even tell? Who was going to know I was a millionaire besides me? Okay, y'all acting like, okay, somebody raise your hand. Tell me how much you make right now. My point. Ain't none of us about to tell nobody how much you make. We don't even do that. But I had this number in my head like I was going to be walking. I'm going to tell everybody. I'm walking around. And I'm from Chicago. I know you don't tell people how much you make. Unless you want to get got. Okay. But I allowed that to determine who I thought I was. And I'm opening myself up to all of this terrible stuff, defining myself by some numbers that don't mean anything. It says, your self-identification should never be the stuff that you have. It should be what God has called you to be. All the way back to Genesis, the Bible tells us that we are created in the very image of God. Imago Dei. This is where your value comes from. You're not valuable because you have money or because you have a nice car or because you have a nice house or because you have all of these people that act like they're your friends, but they will leave you as soon as you ain't giving them money no more. You are not valuable you are valuable because you are made in the image of God. You are valuable because God thinks you're valuable. Because out of all the people in the world, God made you. Out of almost 7 billion people, there's not another you. Not another one. God has never made, even identical twins are different. God made you. That's what your value is. And if we allow all this other stuff to become our own self-identifications, then we're telling God that we don't care what you think. We don't care why you made us. If I don't have this, then I'm nothing. And then as we get older and we interact with our families, I have all these conversations and people looking down on themselves because in their mind, they're not worth anything. All of it financial. Man, they could be talented in art, or they could be talented in all of these things. None of those things matter because we haven't figured out how to monetize it. So we walk around like we're less than, heads down. And we beseech the very throne of God again and again, asking God to help us worship another God. God, give me more money so I can worship this thing. Because then that thing defines me. God, if you would just help me move you out of your seat, put something else there that can define who I am for me. And if you would, God, I'll be so kind as to give you a little bit of that when you bless me with it. This is how we think about it, right? And last but not least, this begins to tell us who we or the ability and character of other people. I've often wondered, why is it that rich people get to go and talk to countries about how they should stop a war or not stop a war? Why is the fact that you can send, I don't know, a Tesla into space mean that you're good at dealing with military strategy and foreign policy? Why? What made those two connections? You know what made the connection? You have enough money. And since we've deified money and we also self-identify with money, now when we look at other people, if you have money, you must be better than everybody else. So your ideas are better than other folks' ideas. You don't need to talk to the actual people who are being impacted. You don't need to talk to the folks that are being killed or the folks whose families are being blown away. It's not them that might be able to come up with great solution. It's the person that has figured out how to make a whole bunch of money. And we often act like you made a whole bunch of money and you started from zero. when most of the richest people in the world never started from zero, but started from inheritances. So they weren't even making all that money. They just were given a whole bunch of money. And why should I worship somebody that was given something and they didn't even deserve to have it in the first place? But all of a sudden, you better than. This is problematic. And it's tearing us apart. It is depleting our worship. Because sometimes we come into the sanctuary or we get before God and we implicate God because God hasn't blessed us financially the way we want to be. As if that's the only thing that matters. We go following all these folks on social media and everything, and we look up to them. We buy these books and all of these, or we jump on podcasts and we do all of this stuff for folks to tell us how to make money when the only thing they're doing are making money off of us listening to them tell us how to make money. And just because you clap your hands before you say something doesn't mean it's more real. Today, all you got to do is be disciplined. Today, we're going to change your life for the money. Today, you're going to get, come on. Today, you're going to give to the church. I thought I'll try. Right? But God has another way. Yes, he does. In that same chapter, Timothy 6, Paul comes back and doubles back and says, I know that I've told you not to get stuck on. I know that I've told you not to let all of these things pierce you. In fact, I've watched people be pulled from the faith. There were people that had the answer in Jesus and allowed money to pull them away. Paul says this. So this is not new. So when we see this happen in our world, let's not be blown away like this has never happened before. This was happening back at the beginning. But then Paul comes back and says, teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. This is 6 verse 17. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. I remember myself saying, and I'll be honest, sometimes I still say this. They were like, money can't buy you happiness, right? That's the statement. Money can't buy you happiness. I've always said, well, can I find out? Can I just try and see, right? But I don't have to try everything to learn from those who have it to see it. Some of the wealthiest people in the world commit suicide. If money could buy you happiness and you got all this money, why are you committing suicide? Why are you on antidepressants? Why do you never seem satisfied? Why are your marriage rates terrible? Have you noticed? It's almost like the wealthier you get, the harder it is to stay married. When in my head, the more money you had, it should be easier. Because listen, I was married poor, and I can tell you how hard it was. Listen, you understand me? You ever had one of them days where you open a checkbook and y'all just fight for no reason? They ain't did nothing. You just open it. Shut up. I don't want to hear nothing in the house no more. Turn all the lights off. We don't need no food. We need to fast. Just angry about everything. Why you got the microwave on? Just mad. Because it's not the resources. The resources never make you happy. You know what makes you happy? The only one that can fill the voids in your soul that lead to unhappiness. Oftentimes we're not unhappy because of the stuff. We're unhappy because of us. And God is available to fill those spaces so that when you have or that when you don't, you've learned how to be content. This is what Paul teaches in Philippians chapter 4. He says, no matter if I got money, if I don't got money, I'm happy. It's not based on all this other stuff around me. I got this thing on the inside that I walk through life with that is worth more than anything else. Paul says, teach those rich people this so they can figure out where real enjoyment comes from. And I don't think being rich is bad, but tell them to use their money to do good. I know some of y'all in here, like there's a spectrum of, financial ability here. Like some of us on one end, some of us on the other end. And y'all on the end with far more money, you also know how hard it is being down there too. Because every time your family call, it's to ask you for some money. They never call to be like, hey, just want to see how you doing. Unless actually, let me take that back. They say that right before they ask. Hey, just want to see how you doing. I ain't calling about nothing. But man, I sure got this $3,500 bill that, man, it'd be nice if somebody was able to pay. Right? Because now, how do you now rightly do well with the resources? They talked about this over and over again, that lottery winners oftentimes go into bankruptcy. Because just getting the money ain't it. Because then all the people that know you got the money, they come running, and all of a sudden now you poor. NBA players, typical 4-year career, they're poor in like 4 or 5 years. Because it's never about the money. Now, so how do I rightly deal with it? What does it mean to do good with money? Right? To rightly take care of myself, to be beneficial to my family, to give to causes and things that are good. What does it mean to do good with the money? In this series, we plan to talk through more of what it means to do good with that money. It says they should be rich in good works and generous to those in need. If you got it, you should give it. Always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they will store up their treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they may experience true life. Back to Matthew chapter 6, Jesus says, why do we store up all this money here where rust and insects and all of these things can take away our resources? We should be storing up treasures in heaven. So, for the love of. Of course, it's easy to say for the love of money, but I think the better way to think about it is for the love of God. Right? There's an idiom that when you say for the love of God, it really means that you're pushing somebody, trying to strongly encourage them to do at least something, oftentimes the right thing, but for the love of God. Imagine if it wasn't for the love of money that led us to all of these types of evils, but it was for the love of God that showed us how to live within our means, how to deal with our resources, how to actually care about others more than just ourselves. Oftentimes, this just helps our own self-conceit and our own selfishness. God is trying to break us into being more like what God wants us to be. Amen. So, it's my prayer that as we walk through this series, as we continue to move forward, we'll see better ways to be even with our resources. That we might stack up these beautiful treasures in heaven, that God might be happy with us, and not just us being unhappy with all the work and effort we do. We can't think well enough about the story of Jesus. Jesus lives 33 years. 30 years we don't have a whole bunch of accounting for, but in 3 years he goes to ministry. We've come to find out that over that ministry, that Jesus wasn't out there doing a whole bunch of fundraising. He wasn't raising big money. But there are folks that came in who had resources that supported his mission. Women that were there, men that were there, making sure that things function so that they can get to point A to point B. But Jesus was never overly concerned if they had a whole bunch or if they had a little. Now, granted, he's Jesus, and so, he was able to say, hey, go see that fish and get the money out that fish's mouth. I probably would worry less about money too if I could do that, but the gift is that he was showing us that if you really would depend on God, I want to say that again, if you were to really depend on God, not the fake kind of dependency on God, Not where we like to say it when we're in the church space, but soon as an issue rises up, we act like we've never heard the name. We're talking full dependency on God. I'm telling you, God has never left us short. Never not played and came through. Never not done all the things that God, and sometimes some of the things that we're worrying about, God is trying to shear them out of our lives anyway. So it's my prayer that we'll get to the point of for the love of God. Because if Jesus was so willing to live his life this way, to give his life this way, and be returned his life for that amazing gift, what do you think God will do if we did the same? Amen. Pray with me.